All right, so someone asked me about, I don't remember the names. I saw it this morning and I didn't check. I don't have reception here to check. Someone was asking me about a story in Kiryas, what do they call it, palm tree now, about a father supposedly complaining that his son didn't get enough of education, and he's complaining about this. And the commenter said, in order to survive in American society, you need to know basic English and math and so forth. I'm someone who I did get a secular education. I'm a college graduate and so forth, and I don't know how much that's true. These things are up to God. They're not these things. We call it mazel zach. It's like almost like it's your luck. If God wants you to be successful, He'll make you successful with nothing. The story goes, someone came to Tasha Rebbe, and he told the Rebbe, ich darf Arbeit. He said, I need a job. And the Rebbe said, du darfst nicht Arbeit, du darfst Geld. He said, you don't need work, you need money. Now, I'm not saying this is how people should live their lives. He went, he bought a lottery ticket, and he won something, not a lot of money, $100,000. This is back in the 60s maybe. So it's a lot of money. He invested it wisely, and he's still living off of that from the bracha of Tasha Rebbe. I'm not saying that's for everybody. But the truth is, as far as working and going into business and so forth, I myself, I know, I'm a college grad, and not too long ago, I was working for something like $18 an hour, schlepping all the way from Sullivan County to the Bronx to work in a nursing home. And who owned a nursing home? Satmar Ingerman, younger than me, multi-millionaire. He didn't have his GED. He never went to college. But he has a good business mind and he's successful. I'm not a businessman. I'm not into that type of stuff. I love working as a chaplain. I love serving the community, serving all the religions. That's what I do, and that's my thing. And so I'm not making millions of dollars, and I'm not owning, nursing homes and this and that. But that's not my lot in life. But this idea that education is some kind of panacea, and I love education. For me, it's very good. And even though I send my kids to Satmar schools, I don't expect them to get a full English education there. They do get a basic English education, and if the kids pay attention and they're motivated, they can get a lot out of it. I taught in Satmar, and basically it's like this. The girls get a much more robust education, and the boys get just very basic. They meet the legal requirements, and that's it. And the old Satmar Rebbe was very insistent that you have to have English, and every Satmar Cheder, where I think it starts in 2nd or 3rd grade, they have English. Until, I think, 7th or 8th grade, they have English. And legally, you're allowed to drop out of school at a certain point. There's no law against that. I think at 16, you're allowed to drop out of school. And there's no requirement to get legally, you're not committing a crime if you don't get a Regents diploma or a GED. The thing was, I taught a GED course also in the high school level yeshiva in Kiryas for the boys who are not, interested in learning all day, and they weren't as strong religiously, and they needed a little bit extra, they needed some kind of diversion. So we learned with them a little bit GED course, and I think some of them might have taken the test and maybe got their GED, verweist, I don't know. But there's no law that you have to get that you have to graduate high school. And the thing is, a lot of people, and it's not only Jewish people, like we said in the previous video, the Amish, the Supreme Court ruled, meaning if you want to live in the Satmar community, you have what you need from going into the yeshiva, and they go into business, whatever, in diamonds if they want to be wealthy people or real estate, where you don't really need to be very educated for these things. You need some basic math, and the one thing that they push very much is math. If the kid, I'm not saying necessarily that he's learning disabled, but a lot of the kids, there are discipline issues, especially in the secular studies, because the kids are tired and they're not interested in it and they're not motivated. But that's their fault. The teachers give what they have to give, and that's it. If the kids don't want it, you can't fight City Hall. It's the same thing in the public schools. What you think the kids in the regular public schools in Manhattan and Brooklyn and the Bronx, they're so I with their English. They coming out, they're also not knowing English. And there you're expected to know English. In Satmar, you're not expected. So the thing is, this claim, the guy doesn't give his name. I personally believe it's just Nick Muster, just using another fake name, just his lies again and again. And the thing is that Nick Muster, all of his brothers, and they all are successful in business. And he's doing okay for himself also. Maybe not as well as his brothers, but he opened his little nonprofit, and he's making a living. So but the thing is we have religious freedom in America, and this is a community that genuinely believes religiously they want to be separate from the rest of the world. They want to be self-sustained, and they don't want to be in the secular society. They don't want the temptations of the secular society. Not all Hasidic communities are necessarily as extreme in that way, but Satmar, New Square, Vishnitz, that's their way. They meet the basic requirements, and that's the other point. In Lubavitch, which is much more modern and where everybody speaks English, a lot of the Lubavitch yeshivas don't offer any secular studies. But the difference is that the Lubavitchers speak English at home. And the Satmars, the kids don't learn English usually until they're 7 or 8 years old is when they start learning a little bit of English. It's their culture, and it's the same. And how's that any different than, you pick up the phone and you're calling some line and it says, press 2 for Spanish. They have their culture and their society, and that's how America is. There's no official language in America. English is not an official language. There's no, and this is a classical libertarian ideology, which is really the way that classically the Republican Party always was under Coolidge and Reagan and under Trump now, to allow people to have self-government and do their own thing and not be forced by the government the way that the Marxists want to do everything the way they want. I mean, you hear now that Bernie Sanders, he wants to close down all private schools and all charter schools. I mean, he's a communist. He's not just a democratic socialist. That's not democratic socialism. And the thing is, what is democracy? Democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. We're a republic. We have a constitution that protects minorities, and that's what the Republican Party is all about. Because we're the party that freed the slaves. So that's my 2 cents on this. You don't need a strong secular education to be successful if you're going to live in the Satmar community. And the thing is, I know plenty of people who grew up in the Satmar community who decided to leave. Maybe they stayed Orthodox, maybe they even stayed Hasidic, but they decided they're doing things a little different than they do in that community, and they still love the community. It just wasn't for them all the things, and they still have connections in the community, and they're still welcome there. They just do things their own way. And one, he went to Touro College, and he became a PA, a physician's assistant, and he knows better than all the doctors. One guy I know, and he, one day he was by us for the holidays, and on his way back home, he stopped in the CVS in Monticello, and there was African-American guy got stabbed by another guy, and he saved his life. And you don't hear about that in the news. I mean, it was mentioned briefly. Nobody mentioned that this guy was an ordained rabbi from the Satmar community. Nobody mentioned that. Why? Because that good news about the Satmar community, the left-wing media doesn't want to put out. They only want to make religious people look bad. And like I said from the beginning, if they get their way with the Hasidim, then it's we're the canary in the coal mine. Next, they're going to do the same with the Catholic schools, with the Muslim madrasas, with the Protestant, evangelical schools. They're going to say they have to teach sex education and LGBTQ and evolution and this and that, and it's a slippery slope. It's never going to end, and they're following the law and they're doing what they have to do. And this is democracy. This is America. You can't force us. We have a constitution that protects us, freedom of religion. You can't force us to violate our religion. And the thing is, nobody has the right to say, well, the modern Orthodox, they do like this, or these other Hasidim, they do like this. It doesn't matter. Freedom of religion is on the personal level. I know this. I'm a chaplain. I work. It's when if an inmate says they need a religious accommodation, and like I always say, if there's a Catholic inmate in the prison says he needs a kosher diet, and we ask the Catholic deacon who works full time in the prison, he said he doesn't need a kosher diet, and the inmate says, no, look, it's in Leviticus. So then the deacon says, well, we'll ask the priest. The priest says, no, you don't need. The priest will ask the Monsignor, and the Monsignor will ask the bishop, and the bishop will ask the cardinal, and the cardinal will ask the Pope, and the Pope will say he doesn't need the kosher diet, and the inmate still says, no, I need the kosher diet. I mean, the Pope's going to point to Acts, and the inmate's going to point to Leviticus, and the inmate's going to insist that he's Catholic and he needs the kosher diet. What does the First Amendment say to that? It's not what the Pope says. It's what the inmate says. It's what the individual says. It's the same thing. That's how it's been interpreted, and that's how it is. And it's the same thing here. You're going to tell me a rabbi from YU says that that it's ridiculous what the Satmar say. That's none of his business. The Satmar can do for the Satmar, and the same thing is, it's not even really the Satmar Rebbe's business when an individual does. Sometimes you have people who are Satmar Hasidim who are more extreme than the Rebbe's, and so you do have certain other schools, not Satmar, that they have even less English, whatever, and the Satmar Rebbe said if you don't want English, you go to a different school. But all the Satmar schools have English. The girls get a lot more, and a lot of times the boys. I mean, I taught there. They pick up from their sisters a lot of things, about history and science and things that they learn. It is what it is. So, but with the boys, what they do learn, I know what they learn: math, spelling, reading, writing, and the reading book includes history and science. That's what they do. All right, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. See you later.